The idea of us called ministry to come alongside young people as they're hearing the voice of God call them into ministry, to support that process, to encourage them, give direction. Wow, what a great idea. And the fact, Pastor, that you're jumping into the lead, that districts are jumping into the lead, and that our district youth leadership is taking control of this process is the right thing. Thank you for doing it. For me, well, in all honesty, I wasn't sure about the call of God when I was a teenager. I actually didn't want to be in the ministry. I grew up as a preacher's kid. I grew up in a pastor's home. I was very well aware from that viewpoint what it would mean to be in the ministry, and it wasn't what I wanted to do. I was hoping someday they would elect me to a deacon position, and I could support the pastor. I could be the best friend a pastor ever had. That's where I wanted to go. I had no desire to be in the ministry. But that was not the Lord's will for my life. As I became a young adult, God continued to deal with me in certain areas of my life. And finally, one night, in a pretty dramatic way, it became clear I'm supposed to be in the ministry. I'm supposed to be a preacher, a pastor, or whatever that means. I'm supposed to be in the ministry full time. It shifted everything in my thoughts. I was already out of high school. I was actually going to Southwestern when that happened to me, and I realized I was called. When I became called, I had the advantage, and it was an advantage, to have grown up in a pastor's home, and just by being there, by osmosis almost, I knew some things to do. Later on, I would become that pastor, and then I would become that district superintendent. And looking back, I realized that everyone did not have that advantage. Everyone didn't know what I knew by accident, and that giving them that platform, teaching them that process would make all the difference. My word to you is very simple. Become a learner. Admit you don't know everything. We already have that, but admitting it, saying, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what that means. I don't know why pastors do that. I don't know how to set vision. I don't know how to prepare a sermon. I don't always know if I'm even good at hearing the voice of God. But learning to hear that voice. My recommendation to all of you who feel called into ministry, above all things, is to remember this. When Jesus called the 12 disciples, the first thing He did was call them to be with Him. Be with Him. Just come and see where I live. Come and see how I do it. Just be a watcher. Just be close enough to hear the things I say when the crowd's not there. Be close enough to know what I do when very few are watching. And He pulled them into that place. From there, they gained the foundation they would need for times after Jesus had ascended, after He was gone and the church was theirs to lead. I encourage you, develop your personal walk with God. Develop personal devotional times, times in the Word, times in prayer. Those are going to become the most important. Number 2, connect yourself to people who've been doing it a while, and do your best to talk them into allowing you to be with them when nobody's looking. When they're preparing that sermon, how do you do that? When they're going to that hospital visit, when they're leading a board or leading some meeting, driving down the road with them. It's those things that happen in those moments that are going to empower you for what happens in public. And I've learned this in the ministry, that what we prepare for in public and private, we accomplish in public. And if we don't have the private, the public will always suffer. Do not focus on public ministry until you get private ministry, private time with God. That's the main thing. And now I've been doing it a long time. I'm 65 years old. I've been a pastor, and I've been a district superintendent, and now the assistant general superintendent. Through all of those levels, I can promise you, the most important is still my private walk with God. It's still my devotions. It's still my time alone in the prayer closet. It's still my time alone with the Bible in my hand and a notebook to write notes in and say what God's saying, journaling and remembering and cataloging and just listening to God. I encourage you to develop that above all things, and you will be everything God's called you to be. I'm glad you're in the process. Someday, we're going to know how great you really are and what God was really up to when we hear the reports of the impact you're having for the kingdom. God bless you. and don't stop what you start.